Welcome to Paranormal Artist. My name is Alex, and I'll be taking you on some haunted adventures. Listener discretion is advised. This audio may not be suitable for all audiences. You jump down the rabbit hole on the paranormal side of YouTube, and you come across this video that was called Top 10 Haunted Places in the Whatever. It caught your attention, so you click the link. They introduced a location that made you lift your head when you heard its disgusting history. After that, you decided that you needed to learn more. And now it's 3 a.m. on a work night, and you're still up watching paranormal investigators gather evidence. Between the horrible history and the hauntings, you just know you need to go to Spring City to see the decaying remains of Pennhurst. On today's adventure, we're going to Pennhurst State School and Hospital, a place that was meant to help those with disabilities, but instead became known as the shame of Pennsylvania. Pennhurst was originally known as Eastern Pennsylvania Institute for the Feeble-Minded and Epileptic. It was seen as a model institution in the Progressive era on how to deal with those born with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Construction for the hospital began in 1903. Since it was state-funded, it had to get passed through the the state government. Quote, "A commission is created to identify a tract of land which shall be good arable land well adapted to the preservation of the health and occupation and maintenance of the inmates of the institution." End quote. I don't know why they called them inmates. I don't think that's the proper word for inpatient facility to call their patients, but this was several years ago, over 100 years ago, or maybe 100 years ago. The buildings were separated into different departments depending on what level disability a person had. For example, there was a department for learning disabilities and a department that was used as an asylum or buildings. The buildings were different. They had a recreational building that had a theater, it had a gym, and I think it had something else, but I can't really remember because that video was seen like a couple hours ago. On November 23rd, 1908, the first patient arrived at the hospital, known as patient number 1. I think a couple of sources, they said that the number part of the identification process for all patients became like a standard thing. Other sources said they used the last name. I'm not sure. I think I got some information from like a preservepennhurst.org and others from people who actually work in Pennhurst. Pennhurst was already overcrowded from the get-go. They put people who didn't fit into society behind its doors. And I mean anybody. People of color, criminals, immigrants, and unfortunately the people who just couldn't do anything on their own, the disabled people, developmentally disabled, the physically disabled, and hyper kids. Yeah, I said it, hyper kids. By 1921, the hospital was near completion for the moment. In 1916, there was a proposal to open a female-only campus, and that means just building for the girls only. And by 1930, the campus was finally opened. The women's buildings were named Pershing Hall, Buchanan Hall, Keystone Hall, and Capitol Hall, built after World War II. The employees also had a building called Audubon Hall. This hospital was already overcrowded, like pretty much from the go. So we're talking about hundreds, maybe even thousands of people being crammed into this hospital because they didn't fit with society's standards at that time. So from the start, there was already too many patients and not enough staff. There were over 2,800 patients living at the hospital just a few years after opening. That's just from one source. The hospital at that moment was only meant to hold about 400 or 500 patients. The staff was overworked, underpaid, and the whole facility itself was underfunded. And I watched a documentary, more of a new series than a documentary. It's called Suffer the Little Children. It's available on YouTube. It is horrid to watch. Basically, when this came out, it was the 60s, so this is far after where I was actually at in the story. But pretty much, they would get $5.75 a day to the hospital as funding. Most of that went to staff and other areas in the hospital, which left the patients with whatever remained. The zoo at that time, the local zoo, got more money for their animals daily than the hospital could afford for the patients, and that's pretty sick. Even in the documentary that was released in the 60s, unbelievably, the buildings were already pretty much disgusting. Conditions were horrible, overcrowded. Some patients had clothes, some patients didn't. Kids were trapped in the beds that are like metal bar beds. I'm not sure if they're cages, but they might as well have looked like that. Some couldn't walk, some couldn't talk, some couldn't eat, just because there wasn't enough help to go around. Because the staff was so overworked, you know how it feels to be overworked. You're frustrated, you're tired, you don't want to fucking do it anymore. Unfortunately, the patients were at the mercy of the staff, and they resorted to such terrible, horrible ways to treat the patients. If a patient acted out, and you know what, before I even start, I have to put a trigger warning for the rest of this episode because it's disgusting, quite frankly disgusting to even tell you about why and what these people would do. And I get it. Sometimes I feel like I'm over, but I will never resort to violence. That's just bullshit to me. But these poor patients had to endure the wrath and the frustrations of whatever the staff felt at that time. Even the chief physician said it, a quote that just, it's gut-wrenching. He said, quote, "Every feeble-minded person is a potential criminal," end quote. I can't put my head around that still. I don't get it. So the chief physician said that these were potential criminals because they did not fit in with society standards, society norms at that time. Ew. The patients, because listen, when I say that they were understaffed, I mean they were completely understaffed. They didn't have enough money to pay their staff well. No funding, pretty much, at all to hire on new staff. So these poor patients were so starved of attention that they would resort to acts of self-harm and violence towards the staff. Which now you're like, oh, well, that makes sense. That's why the staff would get violent, because you get violent with me, I'm going to get violent back. No, that's not what I'm trying to say or ensue or insert into your thought. No, absolutely not. What I'm saying is that these people did what they had to do to get the attention that they needed. And the punishments that would come. Some bit the staff, some would bite them, full teeth. That resulted in them getting their teeth pulled. That's right. They had an in-staff dentist that would pull the teeth of these patients who bit the staff members, and they would be toothless. And they're just trying to get attention. They're trying to do stuff. They're acting out because they need help. And that's not the only thing. I mean, there were broken jaws, there were broken fingers, black eyes. They would get injected with shit just because they acted out. And I actually, while watching Suffer the Little Children, there was a doctor, Dr. Fear. He injected the patients, or a patient, with a very painful injection. And I don't remember the name. I should have written it down. He injected the patient with something so painful because this patient was acting out. You know, in the interview, should any of you go on YouTube and put "suffer the little children" in, just be ready, because you're gonna get really pissed off and you're gonna feel really fucking bad about these poor kids and even grown people that were there. But that's not the only time that Pennhurst was exposed. There were newspaper articles, there was photos, newspaper articles, and just, I guess, leaks of what was going on in there. But what really hit people is when this documentary got exposed in a 5-part series in 1968. The news reporter Bill Baldini, he, along with several articles, was trying to expose. See, now I'm going to keep saying it. I watched that documentary he did, "Suffer the Little Children." You can watch it too. It'll really open your eyes about just how terrible Pennhurst actually was. And, you know, I've watched quite a few videos over Pennhurst. And it's huge. It's a humongous hospital. You need a drone, literally, to see everything. Or get in a helicopter, whatever your money can afford. Like I said, this documentary, it was just terrible because you get interviews with the staff and the doctors and even patients, the ones who were able to talk. But just seeing these poor people living in the conditions they lived in, even when it's like old tape like that, it was disgusting. And I recommend watching it. I really do. Because in order to understand like what I'm talking about, it would probably help out to watch. But that's not the only thing. See, Pennhurst was also sued a few times. There were a couple of lawsuits that happened against Pennhurst, and one of the most known ones, the one that really fucking got the ball rolling on the closure of this place, was the Halderman case. In 1974, the Pennhurst State School and Hospital versus Terry Halderman lawsuit. Here's the quote I got. I had to look in like a legal website, and you can find it too under preservepennhurst.org. There's a website where you can actually access the court document, I guess, of the case that I'm quoting right now. So the Halderman case has, quote, "The abuse allegations at Pennhurst led to the first lawsuit of its kind in the United States, a federal class action, Halderman v. Pennhurst State School and Hospital, which asserted that the developmentally disabled in the care of the state have a constitutional right to appropriate care and education. Terry Lee Halderman had been a resident of Pennhurst, and following multiple episodes of abuse, she and her family filed suit in federal district court. The suit started after Terry had been visited by her parents at home and was found to have unexplained bruises," end quote. So, this is the Terry Halderman versus Pennhurst State School and Hospital case. The poor patient, this poor person, had broken fingers, a broken jaw, broken teeth, bruises all over. Physically, looks like she's got into a vicious and violent fucking fight. The outcome of this case was that the hospital was to be closed permanently, and even that took forever. The hospital didn't shut until 1986, so that meant that they were slowly getting patients out of the hospital and getting them to the spots that they needed to go, finding locations for them to stay, even if it meant to send them back home to wherever they came. Basically, by the time the hospital closed, there were still people there. And in 2010, somebody bought Pennhurst. I'm sorry, I'm horrible with names and apparently writing them down. But Pennhurst is now a haunted attraction for Halloween. And I did see a video recently from Grim Life Collective. And they actually saw the haunted house attraction side of Pennhurst, which that was cool, but also disrespectful on so many fucking levels. We're not going to talk about that. Or maybe I should, because it is kind of fucked up that we're gonna take a hospital that's got this shitty history and then put a fucking haunted house in there for people's Come on, man, really? But I guess they do the same thing at Eastern State Penitentiary, so really, what's the fucking difference? Money is money, apparently. In 2017, they began to allow overnight paranormal investigations and daytime tours. Now, today, most of the buildings are demolished, and all the buildings are linked by an underground tunnel, which is pretty cool. So even on Ghost Adventures, on Grim Life Collective, you are able to see these underground tunnels, and now that it's empty, abandoned land, it is so fucking scary to watch. Like, you're like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever, Alex. That's not like it's not really scary. You're on a fucking other side of a screen, right? No, that's not what I mean. I mean, the silence of the hospital is terrifying, because when you bring it's haunting. The silence is just haunting, scarier than the ghosts, scarier than the demons, shadows, spirits, whatever is in the hospital. The silence alone for me is what would really send a chill down my spine. Now, Ghost Adventures had gone there in 2009. Like I said, Ghost Adventures is in some fucking hot water right now. That's fine. I don't care. I will still watch them. So they interviewed former employees and a former patient of Pennhurst. Now, when you watch the episode, yeah, Zach will keep talking, doing his thing, because he's the star of the show. Whatever, okay? But it's between the takes, when there's like a little bit of silence. That's when you can really feel, even through the screen, you can feel the heaviness that Pennhurst has on it. And I watched a lot of videos to try to get in there and understand completely everything that was Pennhurst, because when I tell you, I was trying hard to find like some really good stuff for you guys. But most haunting for me as a viewer of anybody's YouTube channel who's gone out there is the silence. Silence where there once was screams. Even watching Suffer the Little Children, you can hear the screams of the patients. But the silence that lives there now, and I say lives there because it is living, the energy is alive, you can feel it. The silence is absolutely deafening and haunting. And even though I'm not there myself, I feel that if I was there, I would get a chill down my spine. I would feel the energy that comes off of Pennhurst. The hauntings of Pennhurst are another whole other story. And again, I'm going to sit there, I'm going to tell you, there's trigger warnings throughout for the rest of the episode. I said it earlier, I'm going to say it again, because you're going to need a reminder. I'm already rambling on about everything. Ghost Adventures has gone there. I love Ghost Adventures. And no, I don't care if you've got something against them. I'm a Nick fan, Aaron fan, Zach fan, and Jay and Billy now too, because, hey man, what is Ghost Adventures without those two guys? Ghost Adventures just used to have such great quality, and I'm not saying that they don't anymore, but their earlier stuff was so awesome to me. Just, I wanted in, I need in on the paranormal stuff. I know there's another show called Ghost Hunters. I used to like them before Ghost Adventures came out, but once Ghost Adventures came out, I'm just stuck on Ghost Adventures. I'm not a huge fan of the Ghost Hunters people. I kind of think they're assholes. Honestly. They're just really cocky, and I'm not saying Zach Bagans isn't, but I'm not saying that at all. Zach Bagans is an asshole himself, but he presents himself as an asshole from the start. Okay? Let me get that out of the way. But the evidence that Ghost Adventures caught from Pennhurst, the interviews, everything was just awesome. My thing that really got me was that they interviewed staff, but they interviewed a former patient of Pennhurst named Betty Potts. And she told them that she would act out. She had trouble, but she had been there since 8 years old. And she wanted attention, so she would act out just like the other patients would. So it's natural to see if there's not enough staffing, then, they're gonna act out. It's not their fault. It's not their fault. I want to add that fucking right now. Let's move on. So there's 2 very interesting buildings there, the Mayflower and the Quaker buildings. From what I gathered, they're probably the most haunted buildings on the property. And I watched a few urban exploration videos. The first one I watched for this hospital was by a guy named Abandoned Steve. 16-minute video, not too bad. But it's just the silence that really got me much, much more than the hauntings itself. I really don't, I'm going to talk about the silence because it's just like, that there's stuff there. That there's supposed to be stuff there. The way it just looks like it's somewhere that's really fucked up in so many ways. But when you hear the silence, just the wind blowing, the leaves making their leaf sounds and all that, that's when it really just kind of sets in for me that this place is creepy. When you go into the building, he took us in on his video, and the other guys too. But Abandoned Steve, he took us in there. He says nothing. He's just panning around with his camera. And some urban explorer videos, you will see it. You will fucking see the ghosts, the things pop up on the video. And even though they themselves probably don't believe in the paranormal, you see that shit. I think it's Chills. Chills does like a compilation sometimes of like weird shit caught on camera during the urban exploration videos. Chills, he does that top 15. I think he's most known for his Burger King foot lettuce voice. He's that guy. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's really old and you guys don't know who that is, but whatever, I don't care. I'm gonna sit here and tell you that Chills, he's the one that he will show you that weird shit caught on camera for these urban explorer videos. Now that's what I was expecting to see when I watched this Abandoned Steve filming through Pennhurst. But there was nothing. Just that eerie, heavy silence, that energy that like shoves its way out of the screen onto you. And Ghost Adventures, sorry, I'm going back and forth. Ghost Adventures, they had really good evidence, like I said. They had some EVPs, they had some disembodied voices. And I think the most notable yet thing that I'm skeptic of was when the coat hanger, coat holder, whatever the hell that is, came up and hit Zach on his chest. Now see, I'm a little bit skeptic of it, mainly because it just seemed like too big of an event to have happened. And also before that, like while they're still doing the interviews, they have a loud sound happen in one of the buildings, and Zach goes running to see what it was, only to find a desk that got pushed over, which I'm like, okay, maybe, but with this coat rack that supposedly came and like whacked him on the chest, they had actually gotten on these goggles. I don't remember the name. Like I said, this is a really fucking old episode. They had this thing that said hit, and then probably 30 seconds later, here comes the coat rack. Now, see, the reason I'm skeptic of it is because of the convenience, the coincidence of how this alleged spirit was able to gather that much energy from the source around him without affecting the guys. Because that's one thing. The guys are always affected by something. They'll say, use my energy. They'll say, do this, do that, whatever. They'll like tell the ghost, use my energy. Or they'll have the REM pods. I think they're REM pods that they give out. They have devices that can give out certain energies for the ghosts and the spirits to use to gather energy to be able to do anything, give them anything. But in this case, they weren't affected. Nobody complained of feeling drained. Nobody complained of feeling nauseous or tired or anything for that matter. So I'm here like, that's weird. That's a bit of a coincidence to me. How is it that this thing lifted up without any noise whatsoever and came and smacked him like that? I don't believe it. But I do believe it because there are energies out there that are strong enough to lift things up and push, like, I've talked about it before. Poltergeist activity is very much real. I've experienced it. I know a couple of other people who've experienced it. More, for me personally, I'm more skeptic on that part of evidence, but I do believe it ever so slightly. Not a lot, just a bit. Moving on. Also, BuzzFeed Unsolved has gone there to do an investigation. If you don't know BuzzFeed Unsolved, it's got Ryan and Shane, and Shane's a skeptic, Ryan's a little scared believer. Best guys ever. They are funny. And, it's not it's a serious investigation, but really it's not, because Shane is really funny. So I kind of like when there's a skeptic in a paranormal investigation group, because they're kind of there looking at it from the opposite side. Like, was it really what you're saying it was, or is it something explainable, logical, So while they're there, they're both using the spirit box. They're both doing what they can to try to confirm the evidence. There's a little bit of funniness, whatever. There's a part that comes up where Ryan, the believer, is using a spirit box to capture voices, and names come up. He says, "Who's here?" Insert name. "Say my name." And then a voice says, "Ryan." So for those of you wondering, what is a spirit box? I can tell you. A spirit box is a device used to communicate with intelligent spirits. Or, hell, maybe it can even capture residual. I don't know. It's only been used for intelligent spirits as far as I've seen it. So the box, basically, it cycles through radio frequencies. It makes like a white noise. And if you don't know what white noise is, just play it. Like, go on Spotify, white noise, push play. There you go. It uses radio frequencies, and it rapidly goes through the channels. And I mean, so fast that you won't be able to hear, but like little like that's it. You won't hear anything. And it's believed that it helps create a way for the spirits to communicate through these radio frequencies. So an investigator will ask a question. "Who's here? Can you tell me your name?" The spirit will be able to use that device and say what they need to say. He gets some voices, which I thought was awesome evidence, and I'm not sure exactly when the video came out, but I know it's more recent than what Ghost Adventures had, because I'm talking 2009 was well over 10 years ago now. So we'll say about like 2018 and on for BuzzFeed Unsolved. There's also the spirit of a little girl who wanders aimlessly forever in the halls, searching for her mom, just calling for her mother. There were a lot of children in this hospital. While watching the video from Grim Life Collective, they show the parts of the children's wing where there's like paintings, little murals all over the place for these kids. I don't want to know how these kids are treated, and I certainly don't like when I find out that there's a ghost of a child. I don't like that at all. In the Limerick building, the spirit of a nurse is said to be there. She is often seen wearing the old-style nursing outfit that was worn back in the day. Their outfit was a white dress, a white cap, white stockings or nylons, whatever the fuck nylons are, okay? Fashion people, help me out here. And white shoes. They would wear all white. So she has supposedly presented herself to a firefighter and manifested right there before his eyes. Or before their eyes. Can't assume things anymore. There has also been reports of orbs. I don't think I've used the word orbs on this show before. So what is an orb? An orb is a ball of light that used to be, or is, thought to be a manifestation of a spirit or an energy. Most of the time, unfortunately though, orbs are now often seen as dust, insects, or small pieces of reflective metal. Orbs they're kind of not really paranormal in a lot of people's opinion. An orb can be anything, literally, but now that we have 4K cameras, I think that maybe, perhaps, the orb will be able to be distinguished from a dust or bug. So what I got from this is, quote, generally accepted that a true orb is an orb that is relatively solid in the center without any splokes of light that you'd see from orbs caused by light interference, end quote. Basically, an orb is a circle spirit. It's a circle. And the center is solid white, or whatever color, because some orbs can be red, some can be green. They can vary in color. But it's a circle, it's white. Basically, that's what you'll see with most orbs. Orbs are going to show up pretty much anywhere. In the Pennhurst buildings, there's not one specific place that I saw that had like more orbs than others. Basically, the admin building, Mayflower, Quaker, any of the buildings I listed earlier, they're going to have orbs in it. So if you take a picture, use your phone, you have the flash on, you're probably going to see an orb. Or not. If you are an investigator, you're probably using infrared light or infrared cameras. Now, those will be able to pick up things that we can't see. So if you ever get the chance to go to Pennhurst and do an overnight investigation, you will probably be equipped with an infrared camera. And I mean, you're going to bring it yourself because I didn't read anywhere that they provide anything for you. So you will bring your equipment and you'll just walk around and you'll see an orb. It'll come by, it'll fly by you. And along with that, you might get a physical effect. Like you will get a chill. Your hairs will stand on end. You'll feel something tug at your shirt. Like an orb can be anything. But mainly it's been more considered dust or a bug. But like I said, since we have these very high definition cameras nowadays, it's more of a chance you will get to see an orb, an actual true orb. And I hope you do, because I want to know about it. Also, not just me, we all want to know about it. So in the Mayflower building, when I was watching BuzzFeed Unsolved, they talked about a little boy ghost named Howie. Could not find anything about him. Just know he was a child, a victim, possibly at Pennhurst. He loves his toy plane that was left there. He has a toy plane that he's known for. One of the ways that you can possibly interact with his spirit is by playing with the toy plane with him. Leave it there, have a camera set up, and maybe you'll get some poltergeist activity, and he'll gather enough energy to be able to move the plane just a little bit, or even throw it, which we want to throw because we know that's good, strong energy. I don't know what Howie died of. I don't know that he's real. I'll be honest with you. I couldn't find anything about him. So Shane, being the skeptic, was taunting the spirits. He said, I'm going to lift your plane up. I'm going to lift your plane up. So he did. And nothing happened. Ghost Adventures, I didn't hear anything about this Howie, but they did go into the rooms that there were children's toys in. And also in Grim Life Collective, they were in there. And the tour guide was actually giving them an experience that happened that he was doing the overnight paranormal investigation, and he said the door in this particular room closed by itself. Nope, guy, gone. I mean, the dolls alone are scary enough, but the door closing is just like the cherry on top. So another ghost that's often caught is the Shadow Man or Shadow Girl. I've heard of both. It's just a shadow figure. This one, I haven't seen any video evidence of it, haven't heard any video evidence of it, but it is caught on camera. It's caught on film, caught on camera. A full-bodied shadow apparition. You can also, in this building, hear the disembodied voices, the moans, the screams, the residual haunting of this particular building. Now, they say that that was the most haunted building, but I have to disagree because I couldn't find a whole lot on the Mayflower building. Now, what I found a lot on was the Quaker. The Quaker building was where I found most of the stuff on. So in the Quaker building, again, we have shadow figures. This one was apparently the shadow spirit of a female child. She said to have long hair and hunched over with long arms. Now, remember, I said earlier, there were people who were patients in this hospital who had physical disabilities, who were different from the rest of society. And different, I mean this in the nicest way I can put it, is that they were deformed in a way. They were not born as how they should have looked by society's standards. So their parents chose to lock them away. So it says her spirit's there. Now, I believe that she may be the spirit who roams the halls calling for her mother. I think that, because there's not a whole lot of other little girl spirits that I've heard about, read about, seen anything about while trying to explore the Pennhurst asylum. Pennhurst Hospital. Some investigators have been pushed, shoved, hit, and had marks left on him. Zach Bagans, but he's not the main guy. There are more than just Ghost Adventures. There's so many paranormal groups out there, but they have all had some kind of physical evidence happen to them. Now, if I was able to find every single one of these and like, hey, look, I found this picture, I'll let you know. But until then, I don't. Things get thrown. Doors and chairs move around. And there are several EVP and EMF spikes. EMF is another new term to the podcast, okay? I'm pretty sure I've said it once, but I'll let you guys have a little refresher. So what is an EMF? An EMF is an electric magnetic field. EMF readers measure electromagnetic fields. There are several theories from around the paranormal world that say ghosts have a way to manipulate the electromagnetic field. That's why they use EMF readers, because whenever a spirit is detected, you are able to see a actual movement on the EMF meter whenever something passes by. Like, I mean, you can see when you are investigating in a building that's abandoned that has zero electric power whatsoever. You would be able to pull out your EMF meter and see a base reading of like 0, for example. Now, if you come in contact with something, with a spirit, with even an electrical thing that shouldn't be on, but it is, it doesn't matter. If you come into contact with something, the little numbers will change, the lever will go to like a different area, the colors will light up, whatever kind of meter you have. When people go into the Quaker building, they get elevated EMF readings, meaning that there is possibly the manifestation of a spirit or the energy of a spirit by. And you can see this. Hopefully I'm explaining this good. If you yourself have an EMF reader, then you know what I'm talking about. But for those of you who don't, let's say that I go to Pennhurst. I go to this building that's got no electricity. It's got nothing going on, but there is a heavy feeling. I'm going to pull out my EMF reader. I'm going to hold it out. And I'm going to see right there and then that there is in fact a spike in EMF. Because there is possibly some form of energy that just passed by me. That is what has been known to happen in the Quaker building. Now, the administration building is haunted. I mean, listen, the whole place is haunted. Let's just say that. I'm trying to do my best to really explain in full what Pennhurst is about. This hospital is disgusting. The history is awful. And I fully and completely believe that there are several spirits there. These people went through hell at the hands of people who should have helped them. And it's sick. The ghosts, the spirits, because I really don't like to... You may notice that I say spirit a lot. I don't like to use the word ghost because I feel that ghost is disrespectful on a few levels, being that it's just these were people. We have spirits, and these people died in this place, leaving their spirit behind. Now, when I say residual energy, every hospital, I believe, will have residual energy. People die there. People have died there. Their morgues were probably constantly full. So I believe that Pennhurst has a significant amount of residual energy. And there has been evidence where you can, in fact, hear the moans of these poor people. They're suffering. You can feel it. Even in the silence that's there to this day, you can feel it. Pennhurst is horrible. But you can do an overnight investigation on it. You can visit for the haunted house during Halloween. I don't know how much the tickets are for the overnight investigation or the daytime tour, but I would find it absolutely fascinating to hear from like actual historians, maybe actual people who do it day in and day out. What have they experienced? What have they felt? How have they reacted when they see a spirit? What is it that they do, you know? So I think that maybe, I don't know, because, you know, Pennhurst is in ruins. There's buildings that they're demolishing. I really hate that we demolish so many buildings, but we have to do what we have to do in this country. I was trying to find my best way to educate everybody about like the various paranormal terms, and I'm sure all of you listening to this show already know all of the terms. I'm also sure that there's people out there who have never heard of these terms. So thinking about Pennhurst and everything that I've learned about this hospital, it's gross. And these spirits, unfortunately, are stuck there because they have stayed in those walls and they didn't have anywhere else to go. So of course that they're going to be there. And the poor child that calls for her mother, I'm sure she's not the only one. There's probably hundreds of kids who have been through there and call for their parents. Hell, some of these people never had a visitor in their fucking life while living there. Some people were brought there as little babies. When you think about Pennhurst, what do you think of? Do you think of it as like a place that could have had potential, or would you be like, this place is an absolute fucking failure? I don't know. So I even went on Reddit to find any other additional information or stories of encounters at Pennhurst. I found a couple, but not really anything that was new. So I did see several photos of these shadow figures that are talked about in the story, and I found people who have heard disembodied voices and even some video. And one of the most impressive pieces of evidence that I did find on Reddit was a picture of a full-bodied apparition of somebody walking. And it's just like, it's full-bodied in a sense that you can see the entire body. However, the head was not completely there, and it was a blur of a photo, but you could still 100% crystal clear see this full-bodied apparition. And whoever it was that took that picture, whoa, that's some sick evidence. I like that one. The other one that I saw was a side-by-side comparison photo, where on one photo you can see a picture of a yellow chain going across, and on the next photo, within like a second of the other, half the chain is missing because it's covered by something black. I can't say 100% that that's not like some kind of matrixing or some kind of like source that's not paranormal, But nonetheless, if it is paranormal, that's another great photo. And there was one where the person is taking the picture and a shadow is just right in front of the lens. Like, you know how when your thumb is in the way of a picture? That's how that looked. That was impressive, but there was no backup photo, no second photo to follow it up, so it was just that one photo. And there was a couple of videos from Pennhurst, but nothing was on them that I could see, so I don't know. But just from those encounters that were posted on Reddit, those were some actually really good pieces of evidence that these people captured. And it's really making me want to go up there for myself and take the overnight paranormal tour to see if I can actually get something myself. But that was a story about Pennhurst State School and Hospital. It's a terrible place, and I'm happy that it's closed because it does not need to be open. But we also have to understand that back then, things were different. Medicine and psychology studies have advanced a lot since then. There's a better understanding of everything. So when this place was open, it was open at a time where being different was just horrible. And you couldn't be different. You had to fit in the puzzle piece of society. So I hope everybody enjoyed. I did. I had a great time going over this. As always, you guys know that I have to put the suicide and crisis hotline number on my podcast. If you are feeling suicidal or have suicidal ideation, call or text 988. They are open 365 days a year and 24/7 to give you the help that you need when you need it. Also, you can follow me on Instagram at paranormalartist.podcast, or you can follow my personal Instagram, Alex again with 2 underscores. You can find me on Patreon, YouTube, and TikTok, all under Paranormal Artist Podcast.